It feels like from the customer conversations and the demos that the aha moment, well, one of those happens when they discover that there is an email platform that's built for their needs for SaaS.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Experience, where we give you an inside look behind the top product-led experiences. Each week, you'll get inspiring UX examples, hard-earned lessons, and proven strategies from experts. This is one of your co-hosts, Ramley John, and my other co-host here is Lila. How's it going?
Hello. Hey, Ramley. How's it going? Are you cold? Are you cold still in Canada? Are you cold yet?
Super cold.
Super cold. Super cold. Heading in that direction. Well, I'm warm so far in Massachusetts today, and I'm joined. Well, there's more than just me here, even though I'm the only one in this room physically. Jane Portman, co-founder and CEO of Userlist, a customer engagement platform, which sounds delightful to me. Welcome, Jane.
Hey, everybody, glad to be here.
So glad to have you on the pod. So we're going to jump right into it. Jane, can you talk a little bit, we love to talk about onboarding here, of course. We're going to talk about your onboarding in particular, but how did you, especially as a customer engagement platform, it's very interesting. How did you come to define onboarding at Userlist?
Just been an evolution of things. We have been learning about our customers, how they do things, and what we can do better at. And by the way, at heart, we're custom engagement, but we have repositioned into a full-blown ESP for the last couple of years. Ended up being an easier path to win the customer's heart if you have a very well-defined category. So being an ESP turned out to be easier. That's what we are, ESP for SaaS.
Interesting. So you found that broadening the expansion, like broadening your category rather than niching down, was more valuable to you in your messaging? Or is that, am I misunderstanding maybe?
It's both. On one front, we have added marketing email to the mix, so it's full cycle from when the person becomes a lead to being nurtured, being sold to, and then a trial onboarding life cycle. And previously, we've been super stubborn about just doing the customer life cycle part. So in that part, we did expand, but we also narrowed down from like full-blown custom engagement across many channels to just email. Even though we do technically offer in-app notifications, but we just simplify the messaging and say that we're email marketing platform. That makes things easier for people to understand, for the keywords to target, many other cool things.
That's interesting. And so how did you end up defining onboarding then, with that changing scope of your product and the changing the people using your product? Like, how did that change how you defined what makes somebody successful when they're signing up?
I love how we say positively onboarding, make people successful. Well, in fact, every SaaS company, including, well, especially B2B, with high barrier to entry, we struggle to activate people. Let's call it like in plain English. So we have been struggling with different aspects of getting people on board. At first, it seemed that it's just hard for people to switch. Then we uncovered so many layers of things that people need to do and how they need to think about it. And honestly, it's hard to do that without offering managed services and like professional services and hands-on onboarding. Therefore, we've done what we could to imitate that with our own onboarding. And we had like a 4-step sign-up flow. I think Ramley tested it ages ago. And we decided there were 2 paths to make it smoother and shorter, or to make it more complex, and to demonstrate the commitment. We always had the credit card up front, which is a huge barrier to entry. We know for sure if we remove it, we're probably going to like 4x our trials, but we're not sure if we're actually going to 4x the activations in that scenario. So removing the credit card has never been a real option on the table because we knew like we need committed people. And we decided to make the onboarding even harder for everybody. And it's not our invention. it was a method that I learned from Ashutosh Priyadashi of Sansama. Their tool basically helps busy executives change their lifestyle. So what can be worse than that? Probably. It's even worse than email marketing automation. So the big part of their onboarding is a big qualifying questionnaire. And it's important because it helps them qualify their leads, but also sets the lead into the right spirit for like a commitment mode. I'm here to make a big change. I'm here to do hard work, things like that. So we wanted to have that kind of feeling. And that's what inspired our redesigned onboarding that we are looking at right now. We just introduced this change this spring.
Interesting. So you find that we did this at Litmus too, and it's interesting because it's the same category of email marketing tools, where you needed and it was a constant debate, like, do we have the trial with a credit card or do we not? But we left it on because, yeah, you don't know if it's necessarily going to increase your activation. Yeah, you might get a lot more volume, but this is why looking at the whole funnel is important, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, you can have a volume, you could even have increased activation, but then they might churn. As we saw a lot of that too, is they would automatically get charged, and then you have a bucket load of churn. So there's a lot of push and pull on either side. I feel like. I really like what you said about getting them in kind of like a commitment mindset. I never really thought about that before. Do you think that there's other ways to get people in a commitment mindset other than a credit card? Like, what other ways would you think?
A setup fee? But we don't have that, but like $1,000 setup fee would have definitely helped.
Makes a ton of sense there. We're talking about metrics. You're talking about activation. Can you share a little bit of some of the metrics you track, especially for new user? Like, what are some things that you track? Obviously, you're looking at number of people maybe who send their first email or set up something. What are some of those metrics you look to track that for, specifically for new users?
We have a pretty straightforward activation funnel. We track our primary success metric is the number of users being tracked in the system. And as soon as we get at least one, it means that they have cracked the integration somehow and they started sending customer data to Userlist, which is the fundamental thing to do. And then we care about the number of active campaigns they have in the system. So these are two primary metrics. We also care about the number of segments they have set up. We also care about sending domains. They need to have at least one in order to be successful. So these are kind of secondary, but not on the main path. So we use these metrics to check in on people in the automated fashion using the onboarding campaign that we send via Userlist to Userlist users. So the majority of our onboarding is actually hidden and it's automated using email. It's like the bottom of the iceberg.
So in a lot of we've done a lot of these episodes so far. We talked a lot about value and what is somebody's value moment and how that differentiates from product to product. Like when I think about an ESP, I can't in my head think of like a single time that, like, I guess sending an email is that, like, I guess sending an email is when I would find value, but like, is it usually it's when something comes back into the system. So like from like, when they see a click or they see opens or they see like increased sales or something like that, do you have like a certain group of like things that happen like that you see that you can pinpoint to with people coming back in?
There are so many on the way. Like it's an intricate setup journey that like we don't even try to identify the key one. It's not like,
no, that's good though. Like a lot of people, yes. Yeah. No, that's good.
I imagine because the integration happens behind the scenes in the back end outside the tool. Our rough guess is that the first like magic moment is when you set up the integration and instead of the blank screen that Remley just shared before, the recording, you start seeing user profiles. They like start coming in, sort of.
Right.
That is pretty magical because Userlist is very good at reflecting your customer data structure. That's what makes it so great for SaaS. Like customer data, like nobody thinks about customer data when they think about email. In fact, good customer data is the core of it. We really try to advocate for it. But when they see that coming in and they see it cleanly displayed within the UI and they see like, oh, this is like beautiful, clean, and these are my people in your system. I believe that is a great moment for them. And then, of course, comes the next layer of segmenting them. When you set up a segment, you define conditions, then you click save. That populates. That's probably nice. You can see like, oh, that segment actually has like 60 users in it and things like that. That's nice. Then you would go to set up a campaign. And when you set up a trigger, it would say, oh, this is gonna like fire for 30 people right now or something like that. That's something, an indicator of things happening. And then you set up that trigger, write those emails, and then you trigger a campaign. It's a lot of steps, and then probably hitting activate is great, but by then you're like you're on the run. So it's a lot of things you need to do. And prior to that, in the ideal world, you would also do the planning for your data and just know what you're doing, not just randomly send an email. So yeah, it's not a single thing that makes them click. It's whole thing.
Yeah, a lot of various things tied into one. Yeah, that I feel like that's very common, but that seems like sometimes the narrative is around, oh, you have to find this single moment, but it's in reality lots of moments that lead on some kind of journey.
It feels like from the customer conversations and the demos that the aha moment, well, one of those happens when they discover that there is an email platform that's built for their needs for SaaS, because almost every other platform out there is targeting both e-commerce and all the other kinds of businesses. So they're a little bit more like horizontal in their approach that results in like a clumsy all-in-one experience. And so when they arrive at our website and they see, oh, that's exactly what my SaaS business needs, we've heard great things about that moment from them.
That makes a ton of sense. Actually, let's talk about the customer journey now for Userlist. And I'm gonna bring up a screen for people who are tuning in via audio. I click sign up for start free 14-day trial for Userlist. And as I'm getting on, there's some fields that I have to press. Full name, email. You have to put in your password. What would you like to? How would you describe your skills and check the ones that apply? Jane, when I signed up for this last year, it was different from this. Can you talk a little bit about the journey of like adding more fields? And there's even social proof on the left side where it's a founder and it says user list. The best place to see what my customers are doing is literally my user list. Can you talk a little bit about this experience here that you and your team have created?
When we were designing this flow, we wanted to create this commitment experience. And the given for, like, as a designer, given for me would be how to lead the user to entering their credit card details in a way that they know that it's coming. So we had to have these previous steps on the left so that they know the billing details are the last one, so that they know that they're coming, but they're also primed for this emotionally with the information we gather, so that they feel that this is an expected organic way forward with the software. So the previous steps on the left are designed to give them a heads up on what we are doing here, that this is like a multi-step process. And the screens are split up by theme. So the first one is account. The second is about the product. This one is actually required for the tool to work because you need to have like a send from, company name, website. We use all of this to set up like footers and other things. But it's kind of like you just input this information. You really don't know that it's going to be used for the emails. But also you tell us about the stage of your business, and you tell us about your goals with the product. But most importantly, you figure out those goals for yourself as well. So among those options, you also see what the product can do. It's a dialogue. It's not just they're inputting the fields. So the next step is about their email automation goals. That helps us to understand where they are. In the ideal world, if we had super hard-on sales, that would go, they would go grab this information for each person, and they could use it in the sales process. We don't have hard-on manual sales, so this information is just collected, but it's a powerful thing because it helps them self-diagnose, like what they're going to do with the tool. And then I think it's the customer data situation. This screen primes them for thinking about data at all. Because you would be amazed that many professional marketers still think that the way it works, they're going to just upload the CSV of their customers and it's magically going to empower them to do behavior-based email. In fact, you need to think about the continuous flow of data so that the properties events, they're continually reflecting the user's progress. That's not common knowledge, unfortunately, not even for professional marketers. They're not to blame, but we want to prime them to think about customer data, at least. So we're like asking them where they get the data, et cetera, et cetera. And so once we've walked through these things that kind of reflect their commitment, we are then putting them into the billing screen, which is also much prettier than it used to be because they now have to, they can select a plan and they can see preview of what's the bill gonna be. So yeah, that's the logic, at least the way we wanted it to be.
I love it. I love how you're talking about how it's like a dialogue. I think that's an interesting way to think about it, because a lot of people, I think, when they're designing these, they're thinking, I need to gather this amount of information. And when you frame it like it's a conversation, maybe that framing like helps you have a more customer or user centric mindset, I guess, rather than just like, oh, what's the information we need in order to make this better. Had you run any, like, how did you work backwards into this somehow, into this sign up?
It's just an exercise in like a UX sorting exercise. Like we had what we had together, and then we kind of grouped it into screens that made sense, and enriched it with information that we wanted the customer to have, to feel, etc. And that's how we ended up with these buckets of things they need to commit. By the way, reflecting on your previous sentiment, one of my favorite UX examples about marketing websites is that your pricing grid is not only an indication of your pricing, it's also like the primary communicator of what your product does. Because it's a super common pattern that people just go to pricing and don't really read through your homepage. So it's a complete like second communication goal you need to hit. So we wanted to make sure that people would know what they want to do when they're signing up. It's like the second communication goal here. So to align the expectations of what they're signing up for.
Makes sense. And then I'm curious about the social proof. It looks like every page has a different social proof. Right now it says Userlist, the best place to see what my users are doing. And then once it goes there, there's another person. Love choosing a template when creating a campaign. Userlist, they feel magical. Is that something that you've seen, experiment around with, or like around the order of it? Is it like, if people can sign up here?
They were we have a pool of nice testimonials. So these are some of the previous ones. And when we were designing it, I put them there in Figma. we weren't like super strategic with them, but they were supposed to kind of make sense with the screen information. This idea of including some sort of proof on the screens is not new under the sun. We just figured out a layout that works for us. We really wanted to have like a balanced layout with the steps and something interesting for the eye, like the testimonial.
I want to move on to the next experience here when I finally entered my card, and I'm trying to skip it so people don't see the app use credit card that I used to test this out. Is now once somebody finally puts in their credit card, this is an empty state. There's like an icon in the middle, and it says in the sub headline, "Let's get your user data flowing. Find all the technical details in our integration guide," and that's clickable. And then make sure to check out our planning worksheets before you get started. This is somewhat similar than I've seen last year, but you said that the worksheets are new, and can you talk a little bit about this empty state and how clean and direct it is?
As a designer, I think you have think you have a big screen, so this empty state looks a bit more empty than I wanted to. And honestly, there are a few more improvements in the works that are gonna make it feel less lonely. We have like some widgets coming up bottom and top so that it's looking more populated in the end, but not at the moment. It looks it's gonna look better with time too. As a UX person, I'm a big proponent of empty states versus some violent things that get in front of you. So we want to encourage the organic app experience. Yes, it is a big problem for us that the app is looking empty until there is customer data in place, and there is no magical way to make it look like populated. Yes, there are tools out there that we've seen. They have like they pre-populate segments for you. They pre-populate campaigns. It's a bit not honest because every SaaS business has their own needs. They might have a different model, like free trial, freemium. They will definitely have segments of their own. And those templates, you can barely have basically what you can put in. Knowing what you know is just the title of the campaign. That's all you can do.
Yep.
And maybe a couple placeholder emails. I would argue, yes, probably it will make things look more inhabited, but is it honest? I don't know. So we opt for a clean but honest experience. It's probably not the wisest, and we will make it look more homey after a while. But at the moment, that's what we got.
I actually think that your instincts are correct, just based on what we've heard from other. I almost said subjects on this show. It sounds like you're subjects of some horrible experiment.
Yeah.
Guests on our show have said that adding additional like superfluous elements to empty states has decreased engagement overall, and that having a clean empty state is actually a boring empty state, if you will, is more effective than having something that is maybe a little bit more fun or like has some sort of example in it or something like that. So I think that's interesting to experiment with, like on either end. If people have a bunch of those, and I think people's also their appetite for what software looks like changes too, and changes on their business setting and changes on what they're doing. So I think it might seem appropriate in certain products, maybe not others.
I can tell you that what's coming up in terms of improving this screen. Right now, we are pointing people to the integration guide, and we're planning to have a big blue call to action button in the middle that would say add another integration. It will trigger a screen where we pile on all the available integration technologies that people can pick what's relevant and then continue on to the instructions. Right now, it only exists in the docs. So we want to sort of take part of those docs and integrate them into the app experience in form of like pretty icons and stuff. So that's hopefully coming up with the next few months.
Nice.
We have changed the way people see integrations and we see integrations. On one hand, because not all integrations are created equal. When people think about integrations, they think about like, how do I get this going? But there's also like 60% of what we have, the logos, are just complementary integrations. There's just a handful of them that allows for proper customer data to flow, like the complete customer data with properties, events, and other things. Among those, Segment as a data platform, Rudderstack. We also decided that we have libraries for popular languages. These are also considered like integrations, though technically they are just integration libraries. So we just put them all in one big list, and we're going to display that list to the user. Before that, we consider them all kind of different, but integration as a keyword just means everything. So we decided to like put them all together and let them find what they want.
Nice. That makes sense. What are some things that surprised you about this process, like of building this new screen, or this like from working on onboarding overall? I know you said you made some pivots, so I can imagine you've learned some things.
The majority of work happens before they sign up.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's just true. We put so much effort into educating people on email strategy, what they should be expecting, how to think about their email. And by the time they arrive at the sign-up screen, if they're inspired to change something, they will absolutely move forward regardless of the like empty state or not. Like they will find it out. Our API integration is really good. Like our Ruby gem, you can just drop that. It will discover your customer data hierarchy. And in a few lines of code, you will export your structure, including like complex many-to-many company data, and we'll send it to Userlist. So we just had somebody discover that, and they raved on Twitter, and that brought like so many customers.
Yes.
So it's a good thing and doesn't have to do anything with the UI.
That's super cool. And for people who are not familiar, Ruby gems are integrations for Ruby on Rails, which is a platform. So really cool to hear that. Jane, in terms of other things that are coming up, you mentioned the integrations. Are there anything else that you're excited to experiment with or try out for the onboarding experience, or even for the product itself? Like, what are some things that are coming up that you can share to our audience that you're excited to see happen at Userlist?
We're in the middle of an experiment with strategy calls. And to be honest, we replaced all the key calls to action on the website to having a free strategy call. And we had that up for, I don't know, maybe a month or two, and probably around a month. And to be honest, it's not too popular. So I have had a few strategy calls, but the overall sign-up rate just seems to be healthier for a demo. So even if you want to give away something free, maybe it's easier to have communication when the goal of it is on the table versus when it's a strategy call, people feel like some strings are attached or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of calls with clear intent, and a demo is a call
some more
with
clear honesty.
We had pretty honest intent to provide like free advice, but people still maybe feel like that's not honest enough. So
I like it.
Jane, where can people find, obviously, more about Userlist, more about yourself, and the advice for email marketing? I'm sure we have a lot of listeners who work on B2B email marketing. I know I do. So I'm actually going to creep on some of your content myself.
So it's userlist.com. We have a very nice podcast called Better Done Than Perfect. I actually have a tattoo here that says BDTP.
Love it.
Cure against perfectionism. And we have a blog, and our mission is to make content that is also awesome for humans, not just for SEO. So like for both. So you will find some very good stuff there if you're keen to read.
Awesome. Sounds great.
So much for your time, Jane. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us today.
Thank you.